only a month from today, each one of you will look back over the last few decades of your life, and you will wonder, what was your life all about? What positive influence did you leave others in your life? So as I was saying, if you remember Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development, the questions that you will be asking of yourself in just a few weeks are inevitable. I hope that the counsel that I offer you here today will help you have some good answers to those questions. Certainly being a great nurse is what all the faculty seated here not only want for you, but we expect of you. But I want to say that there are many things in life that are far more important than being a great nurse. Indeed, I'm convinced that no one can be a great nurse without first being a great person. So at the beginning of your new journey as a registered nurse, I want to thank you first very much for giving me this final opportunity to offer you some of the things that I think are required to make a person great. You asked me here to talk to you from my heart. And so what I have to say to you in the next little bit is as important as anything that I have ever said to you in the classroom. In fact, many of the things that I have shared with you in the classroom, you'll hear them again in just a few moments. And that's okay, because repetition is a great memory enhancer. And because I consider what I'm about to say so important, I will provide for you 2 ways to refresh your memory of what I say here. First, as you noticed, I'm recording this. I'm going to upload, after I have edited out all the flubs, I will upload this to YouTube. And so you'll be able to find it by searching my name and looking for GTC Pinning. The second memory help is in the form of the acronym REFRESH, R-E-F-R-E-S-H. The 7 letters of that word will apply to the 7 principles of success that I'm about to share with you now. First, R, relationships. During my more than 20 years on active duty with the Navy, 17 of which were as a nurse corps officer, I watched men and women earn a multitude of medals and ribbons and insignia reflecting their various deployments, their military honors, and their rank. But during their years climbing the promotion ladders, many of them lost something very precious. They lost their families. I've lost count how many military comrades of mine at the end of their careers retired to an empty house because they did not nurture their family relationships. And it's not just my former colleagues in the military, but as a nurse I have seen many, many people end their careers alone. I've been in many patient rooms listening to them die, and they die alone. No friends, no family. Only strangers enter and leave the room in the routine care of their body. Please do not misunderstand what I'm saying. I am not saying it's wrong to work hard and to move up the corporate ladder. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that if you sacrifice your family relationships along the way, you will be very, very sorry. Take care of your relationships with your family, your spouse, your children, your parents, your siblings. Build those relationships. Nurture those relationships. Cherish those relationships. At the end of the day, those relationships will really be the only thing that sustains you as you lie in some hospital or hospice bed waiting for the inevitable. Good relationships, by the way, are not 50-50. They are never 50-50. Get that deceptive equation out of your heads. I have learned in my own marriage of 41 years and raising 3 children who are older than most of you sitting here, I've learned from experience that every good relationship, in every good relationship, someone is always giving more than 50%. It's called love. Please do not imbibe the ideas from Hollywood. Most of the writers and actors on the screen and off the screen don't demonstrate an iota of a clue about what love is. And I promise you, if you take your guidance from them, you will fail in your relationships. Let's now look at E, empathy. Perhaps the best way for me to try to help you understand what it is to feel empathy is to read you this poem, reported to have been written by an elderly patient in a nursing home in Scotland. I read it before. I read it at almost every pinning ceremony where I speak. What do you see, nurses? What do you see? What are you thinking when you're looking at me? A crabby old woman, not very wise, uncertain of habit with faraway eyes, who dribbles her food and makes no reply when you say in a loud voice, "I do wish you tried," who seems not to notice the things that you do and forever is losing a stocking or shoe, who resisting or not lets you do as you will with bathing and feeding the long day to fill. Is that what you're thinking? Is that what you see? Then open your eyes, nurse. You're not looking at me. I'll tell you who I am as I sit here so still, as I do at your bidding, as I eat at your will. I'm a small child of 10 with a father and mother, brothers and sisters who love one another. A young girl of 16 with wings on her feet, dreaming that soon a lover she'll meet. A bride soon at 20, my heart gives a leap, remembering the vows I promised to keep. At 25 now, I have young of my own who need me to guide them to a secure, happy home. A woman of 30, my young now grow fast, bound to each other with ties that should last. At 40, my young sons have grown and are gone, but my man's beside me, and I don't mourn. At 50, once more babies play around my knee. Again we know children, my loved one and me. Dark days are upon me. I shudder with dread. My young one, my husband is dead. I look at the future. I shudder with dread, for my young are all rearing, young of their own, and I think of the years and the love that I've known. I'm an old woman now, and nature is cruel. 'Tis just to make old age look like a fool. The body, it crumbles. Grace and vigor depart. There is now a stone where I once had a heart. But inside this old carcass, a young girl still dwells. And now and again, my battered heart swells. I remember the joys, I remember the pain, and I'm loving and living life all over again. I think of the years, all too few, gone too fast, and accept the stark fact that nothing can last. So open your eyes, nurse, open and see. Not a crabby old woman. Look closer, see me. Remember your mama. Remember your mama. Every patient could be your mama, because every patient is someone's mother and father, and sister and brother, and husband and wife and child. And so empathy will cause you to linger with a patient who needs a hand on her shoulder, an ear to listen, a word to encourage, or just a silent smile. Empathy will soften your response to the angry patient who's just received bad news and is taking that bad news out on you. Empathy will remind you your patient is just like you, someone with fears and anguish and confusion, someone who wants it to be all right when it may never again be all right. The next letter, F, forgiveness. Living with an unforgiving spirit is like drinking poison and hoping that the person you don't like dies. You hear that? Drinking poison, hoping someone else will die. That's what unforgiveness is. Unforgiveness is the root that will blossom into your own disease, darkness, and even your early death. Unforgiveness is like a cancer. The longer it remains, the larger it grows, and the more opportunity it has to metastasize, until it's too late and death is the inevitable outcome. Forgiveness is not the same as trust. Forgiveness does not mean you stay in a dangerous situation. Forgiveness simply means, as an article from the Mayo Clinic put it, you make a conscious decision to let go of resentment and thoughts of revenge. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you deny the other person's responsibility for hurting you, and it doesn't minimize or justify the wrong. You can forgive the person without excusing the act. Learn to practice forgiveness. Before today is over, you will likely encounter several opportunities to begin your practice of forgiveness. The next letter in refresh is the second R. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth. I have in my hand here the most current issue of Nursing 2016, the May issue. It is perhaps serendipitous that there's an article in here addressing spiritual assessments of our patients. Spiritual assessments, as you know, is part of an overall patient assessment that the Joint Commission requires of all nurses to make of their patients. The Joint Commission has what some might consider surprising words. For those of you in the audience who are unfamiliar with the Joint Commission, formerly known as the Joint Commission on Accreditation of Healthcare Organizations, now simply known as the Joint Commission, is a private nonprofit organization whose mission is to continuously improve the safety and quality of care provided to the public. The Joint Commission tells us that research consistently finds a link between patients' spiritual dimension and his or her health outcomes. Studies have repeatedly demonstrated that, I'm quoting, spirituality has been shown to be associated with decreased anxiety and depression. For example, a review of emotional distress and coronary heart disease reported that depression, stress, anger, and negative emotions were strongly correlated with increased cardiac death and reinfarction, independent of disease severity. As a consequence to the link between spirituality and health, the Joint Commission requires of all healthcare organizations to include a spiritual assessment as part of the overall assessment of their patients. So where am I headed with this? Since the research demonstrates that a spiritual assessment is of clinical importance to our patients, then it follows that a spiritual self-assessment is of importance to us as nurses and to us as human beings. It ought to be intuitive that when our spiritual being is routinely assessed and nurtured, that we heal better and we adjust better when life kicks us in the teeth. Please, therefore, remember to take my 15-minute challenge frequently through your life journey. Reflect on who you are. Reflect on who you were And who do you want to be? And what do you need to do to become that person? During that 15 minutes, maybe you want to read or listen to something of a spiritual nature. I read scripture and spend time in prayer. You might feel more comfortable doing something else. But the point is, spend time with yourself and your Creator. Get to know yourself again. Get to know Him again. It may be difficult at first, may be uncomfortable at first. Do it anyway. I tell you from experience, you will be the better for it. E is the next letter. Encouragement. Encourage others toward hope by your words and actions of hope. Be that shoulder to cry on, that ear to listen. We rub shoulders every day with dozens of people who need hope and encouragement. My wife told me of an incident that she had when she was in a doctor's office several weeks ago. She was sitting opposite an elderly woman, maybe 80 years old, waiting to be called up to the front desk. She was well dressed in her blue pantsuit, but then Nancy noticed that when the woman stood up to walk up to the front desk, that she had rolled her pant legs up about a foot. And Nancy wondered, did she have no one to hem them for her? Or did she have no one to even take her to a seamstress? And I thought of the lyrics of an old Beatles song. Eleanor Rigby picks up the rice in the church where a wedding has been, lives in a dream, waits at the window wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Well, who is it for? All the lonely people. Where do they all come from? All the lonely people. Where do they all belong? What can you and I do for all the lonely people? What can you and I do for the one lonely person that we talk with? Lonely because they've learned that no one cares to hear what they have to say. What message can you and I be to those who won't look others in the eyes because they know by experience that their place is always beneath and behind and in a corner? Seek always, insofar as it is possible, to be an encouragement to those you meet. A kind word, a kind action, a kind smile, a helping hand. Be one who encourages. S. Speak your mind even if your voice shakes. You have something important to say, to advocate for yourself, for your patients, for your friends. Do not let others intimidate you into silence. Call that physician at 2 o'clock in the morning if you're worried about your patient's condition. Call for a timeout in your patient's room or in the surgical suite if you notice something amiss that can hurt your patient. Advocate for your patients. Stand up for them when you think something is wrong, whether it be a doctor's order or a careless attitude of one of the nursing staff or management. You will always and often be the last link in the safety and the protection and comfort of your patient or others. Do not let the tyranny of the other person's position. Listen up. Pens down. Look at me. Do not let the tyranny of the other person's position, education, rank, or privilege silence your voice, even if your voice shakes. Speak what is right and good and moral with regard to your patient or with regard to what is happening in the culture and the society around us. The last letter, H. Humility. It's easy in the early years for most nurses to realize that they don't know it all because they don't. But in later years, with experience comes the danger. I know what I'm talking about, and I've told you this many times. because I fell into that very serious era of pride more often than I like to recall. And I hurt some of my patients because of my pride. I thought I knew more than I really did, or I was too embarrassed to ask others for help or for guidance. And that's why I have said it. Pride will hurt more patients than ignorance. Pride will kill more patients than ignorance. I don't know is a good answer. Never forget that. I don't know will always be a good answer. Humility will also compel you to know the name of the housekeeper who cleans the trash. Humility will compel you to know the name of the maintenance person who fixes the toilet. Humility will pull you into the patient's room to help the nursing assistant clean the patient who soiled his bed, even if he's not your patient. Just because you are a registered nurse doesn't give you any special privileges. In fact, just being a registered nurse puts you in a place of greater responsibility to be respectful and kind and humble before others. I conclude with this. As I said earlier, the stages of the psychosocial development are universal and they are inevitable. And so when in a few weeks from today, you reach that last stage of Erickson's life map, ego integrity versus despair, you will find yourself asking, what good have I done with my life? I hope, as do all the faculty here and your families, we all hope that you will have the right answers when you finally ask yourself that question. And I'm convinced that if you take to heart the advice that I have shared with you, you will have the right answers. May God bless you and keep you. Make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance and give you peace, and your families peace, now and forever. Amen.